Due to an incident, it is necessary to evacuate the area. Please
go and get your guys, go and get them.
by the nearest exit.
I need some help, yeah.
Introducing the Casualty Clearing Station. A word about my approach. In presenting the evidence, I am not going to state an opinion or defend a position, but rather share with you the evidence that I examined for you to consider. All of the documents I use are publicly available, and at the start of each episode, I will provide a list of the ones I go on to discuss. You can find the links in the show notes, and I encourage you to examine them for yourself. Bear in mind that there is so much material available that I have had to be selective about what I include. My investigation has been shaped by my curiosity and little else, and I don't come to any firm conclusions about anything. For some time now, I've been examining the evidence related to the area that was referred to during the Manchester Arena inquiry as the Casualty Clearing Station. My interest in this particular aspect was sparked by this photo. Some of you may recognise it from the Rich Planet investigation. It appeared in the Irish Sun on the 24th of May 2017, and I call it the Minikin Photo, after the photographer who captured the scene, Glenn Minikin. And although this particular image is not credited to him, I know that he is the photographer because the second photo of the same scene, which has since been removed, has his name on it. Quote, Kim Dick and a police officer help a 14-year-old girl who was injured in Monday's terror attack at an Ariana Grande gig in Manchester. Credit Glenn Minikin. And it's followed by this photo. Quote, Kim and her husband Phil, both 54, were just yards from the suicide bomber when the explosion occurred. Credit Glenn Minikin. Here we have the webpage of the photographer Glenn Minikin. I'll just run through some of his photos. I did find an email address for him and a phone number, and I was going to contact him because I do have questions about the photograph that appeared in the Irish Sun on the 24th of May 2017. The questions I wanted to ask were, how did he get in to photograph that scene, and did Freya Lewis's parents give permission for that photo to be used? In the end, I didn't send him an email because I felt that I couldn't phrase those questions in any way that didn't sound like I was making accusations, so basically I chickened out. Here's another version of the photo. As you can see, there's a bit more detail here of the background, and I found that the key to knowing where this photo was taken, and I did actually pinpoint the exact location, are these bollard type things here. Now I thought these were litter bins because that's what they look like, but actually they're solid, and I know that because there are photos of people actually sitting on them. And this is known as the War Memorial entrance. This is a picture of the War Memorial entrance that I found online. It was taken in August 2022, and it shows you how it looks from a different vantage point, and you can see there are 4 bollards here, 2 on the left side and 2 on the right, and as I was saying before, these are solid, they're not litter bins, people sit on them, so that's that one. Now this is a good website for viewing photos of this particular part of the Casualty Clearing Station. The website is War Memorials Online. This particular photo is interesting because you can see here that towards the door side, the entrance side, the curb is a lot steeper than towards the other side, and that gives us a clue as to where the Minikin photo was taken. This is a still image from the CCTV footage that was taken that night. You can see the vantage point that the camera had, and this is camera 8 NVR4. It was taken earlier in the evening at 20:12 and 20 seconds. I've delineated the edge of the matting at the entrance and also the curb near the bollards to show you the difference in height of the curb. It's much steeper towards the external entrance, and it gradually gets shallower towards the concourse. Also of note in this photo is the blue newspaper stand. Going back to the Minikin photo, you can see that the location of this particular photo was taken towards the station concourse side of the entrance rather than the external main entrance. And here I've marked on the position of the makeshift stretcher that Freya Lewis was brought down on from the city room later in the evening. It's there quite close to the blue newspaper stand. Now I can take you through the photos of that area that were shown to the inquiry. I'll use the Rich Planet CCTV image viewer. Along the top here you can see there's a tab for the station memorial, so I'll select that, press begin, and go through these one by one. This is earlier on in the evening, 2009, and there are a lot of these images, so come in and go in. People sitting down here. These images include a view from the concourse, and you can see the entrance just here. Keep going through. So we're up to 22:31, which is dead on the time of the incident. Ten seconds later, no one seems to be reacting, as Richard pointed out in one of his videos. So this is quite a bit later now, and there's obviously a lot of activity around that area. Keep going. The area seems to have been cleared now for the most part, and this is where the casualties are starting to arrive at the casualty clearing station. They started at this end and they worked back. In this particular image, which was taken at 23:24 and 37 seconds, you can actually see the scene that was captured in the Minikin photo. So this here is Phil Dick and this is Kim Dick leaning over the stretcher. Freya Lewis can't be seen here because there are too many people in the way, but it gives you the exact location of where she was and where that photo is taken, and it is indeed towards the concourse end near the newsstand. You can just see the end of the red trestle table here. She was taken down on this makeshift stretcher, which was actually a red trestle table. So 12:41, and Freya Lewis appears to have gone. One minute to 1 AM in this photo, and that's it. At the inquiry, this piece of evidence was shown, and it's a hand-drawn plan of the casualty clearing station. Just here is the entrance, the War Memorial entrance. So this is outside and it's on the pavement. Here's the bottom of the staircase that goes to the raised walkway. So I've identified where Freya Lewis was at the casualty clearing station, and it's here. So the time she was brought down was 11:12. But as you can see, there were two other people who were brought down at 11:12, either side of her. Also shown at the inquiry was this table, and it's a list of all 38 casualties who were brought down from the city room to the casualty clearing station. Now, there's quite a lot of information in here. They have redacted the names and the hospital that they were taken to, but as you can see, it includes the arrival time of the patient to the casualty clearing station, the method of conveyance, which includes things like being brought down on a makeshift stretcher or in a wheelchair or assisted down, the priority of the casualty, which is how they triaged the severity of the injuries. Now, these casualties were generally 1 or 2, which were the highest priority. Next, there's a column for the departure time to hospital. Now, this column, I think, is when the ambulance actually left, rather than the time that they left the casualty clearance station. I'm not altogether certain about that, but that's how I understand it at the moment. Then there's the conveyancing ambulance call sign and the arrival time at hospital. Freya Lewis was number 7 on this list, and the reason I've worked this out is because number 6 was assisted down, and so because Freya was on a makeshift stretcher, that can't be her. And number 8 and number 9 both left the casualty clearing station at 2:35 in the morning, and they were both in the same ambulance, and they both arrived at 2:45. So they obviously went together to hospital in the same ambulance. And I've identified these as Emily Murrell and Ruth Murrell. Ruth Murrell was visible in the Minikin photo, and it says here that she walked down to the casualty clearing station. Looking down the list of methods of conveyance to the clearing station, and it was Ruth Murrell because she confirmed it herself in an interview on a blog called Jade's Journalism, where she said that she and her daughter were taken down to the casualty clearing station about 45 minutes after the incident happened, and her daughter was actually taken down on a trestle table similar to Freya Lewis, and it was a red trestle table. So that's an interesting little detail. Going back to the floor plan, there was only one casualty who was timed at 11:13, and that was Ruth Murrell. So she was here. Next to her was her daughter Emily, and then next along was Freya. So the scene in the Minikin photo captures Freya and Ruth Murrell. There's no sign of Emily, but that could just be the angle that the photo's taken at. I should explain that the reason I'm so keen to look at these matters in such detail is because I want to compare the evidence that was given at the Manchester Arena inquiry and also the mainstream media articles in which witnesses and victims have given an account of what happened that night to the CCTV images that were presented to the inquiry. And so what I'm going to do now is take you through the photos one by one and point some things out. Now, every single one of these photos has a lot going on, and I will be coming back to them in future episodes with different details. But for this one, I'll concentrate on what was happening in that Minikin photo. I'm starting with this image from 2303. So that's roughly half an hour after the incident. Here's the red trestle table where Freya Lewis was situated. Next photo, 2310, and you can see that already the casualties have been brought down. Obviously they have redacted the images of the casualties, as you can see. And at 23:24 and 37 seconds, this is the photo I was showing you earlier, which has captured the scene that was photographed by Glenn Minikin, with Kim and Phil Dick and presumably Freya on the red trestle table amongst all that. There's a wheelchair in the background here and someone sitting in that wheelchair. So somewhere between Kim Dick and the wheelchair is Ruth Murrell and Emily Murrell. The next picture is from 23:39 and 16 seconds. You can just see here the red trestle table, and this is Freya Lewis. And there's some activity going on behind here. It's impossible to see quite what's going on there, but that is where Ruth Murrell and Emily were. Next photo, 23:54 and 44 seconds. I'll put the outline of Freya Lewis's trestle table on to show you, and there it is. So the activity going on there is around Freya, and just behind that you can see another red trestle table. Now, I know that Emily Murrell was brought down on a red trestle table, so I'm assuming that's her. The next photo is 24 minutes and 49 seconds past midnight, and again you can see just the foot end of Freya Lewis's trestle table there. Again, I'll put the outline on to show you. There it is. and behind that there's activity going on as well. Still no one in that chair, and it's actually been turned round, and there seems to be a trestle table leaning against it. Moving on to 41 minutes and 25 seconds past midnight, we have this. Now, it's pretty obvious here that Freya Lewis is not there anymore, and neither's the trestle table. Again, I'll put that outline on, so that's there, and immediately behind it there's nobody there either. The wheelchair, which did have someone in, has been turned around and there's nobody in it. It looks like there's a casualty here who's been tended to, because there's a redaction there, and there is someone sitting against the wall just there. So there are people still here, but it's very odd that this area here is very cluttered, so I can't really see that there's anyone there. And there's activity along towards the door end, but yeah, I find this a very interesting photo. And this one is actually the last one that we have from this camera, and it's roughly 2 minutes to 1 o'clock in the morning. As you can see, there doesn't seem to be anyone along this edge now. There are people standing there and not looking like they're tending to anyone. So all the way back to here, there aren't any casualties. It looks again like there's some activity around this casualty close to the door, but the rest of them just aren't there in this photo, and it's not quite 1 o'clock in this photo. So just bear that in mind as I take you through the next bit of evidence. This is the snippet from the table of 38 casualties who were brought down to the casualty clearing station. And Freya Lewis, in the photo, in the CCTV images, she had definitely gone. She wasn't there at 41 minutes past midnight, and yet this table says that the departure time to hospital for Freya was 12 minutes past 1, so that's what, half an hour later. We don't know when she was actually removed from that space on the floor there, but we know that there was at least half an hour from her being removed from the floor to the time the ambulance went to hospital. And for Emily and Ruth, who were recorded as departing for hospital at 2:35 in the morning, the final photo in the sequence from the casualty clearing station was a couple of minutes to 1 o'clock. So that's a whole hour and 35 minutes after that CCTV footage. So where were they? I'll wrap up now with these two documents that I found in the Manchester Arena Inquiry Archive. They relate to Ruth's brother-in-law, who's called Tim Murrell, and he works for the Lancashire Fire and Rescue Service. And this first one is a transcript of a phone call between Tim Murrell and the North West Fire Control Unit. Now, it seems that when Ruth was in the city room at 22:55, she phoned Tim to tell him where she was. Now, from what I can work out, he wasn't on duty that night, but because he knew the people in the control unit at the fire service, he phoned them to tell them what he was hearing from her. He's saying to the control unit that Ruth was on the line at the time while he's talking to them, and that she's given him the location of herself and her daughter Emily as the main entrance next to the stairs. Now I'm going to go through this particular document in more detail in a future video. More relevant to this video is this document, which is the witness statement of Joanne Haslam. Joanne was a member of staff in the fire control unit on the night, and this particular witness statement goes through what she experienced, but there's this paragraph in it which mentions Ruth Murrell, and it says, quote, at 2:18 hours, that's 2:18 in the morning of the 23rd of May, I received a call from a firefighter at Phillips Park Fire Station, and who was in attendance at the scene, and who asked if I could speak to a member of the public. I spoke to a lady called Ruth Murrell. She told me that her brother-in-law had been ringing her, and that she had been asked to inform her brother-in-law, a Tim Murrell of Lancashire Fire and Rescue, that she, Ruth Murrell, his sister-in-law, and his niece Emily were okay and were about to go into an ambulance. She told me that they were both hurt but being well looked after. End quote. So that just gives a little snippet of what was happening at that time, 2:18 in the morning. From what it says here, it sounds like Ruth flagged down one of the fire officers and asked them to pass this message on to Tim Murrell. So, and it says that the fire officer was in attendance at the scene. So where did this encounter take place? Because it is shortly before she was taken to hospital, according to the table of 38 casualties and the time recorded there. But the CCTV images suggest that she wasn't in the place that she and Emily had been earlier on, and it's a bit of a mystery what was going on there. Next time I'll be looking at the extensive press coverage given to some of the other casualties who were caught up in the Manchester Arena incident to see how it compares to the evidence heard at the inquiry. Thank you for watching. If you have any comments about this video, please let me know.